My name's Tom Preston-Werner. I'm general partner at Preston-Werner Ventures. I was formerly CEO and co-founder of GitHub.
Come in. All right. So first thing is, what excites you the most about the intersection of AI and human connection?
Would you like me to weave the question into the answer, or are you gonna?
I feel like with that one, it will weave itself in. But yeah, this is what are you most excited about as far as intersection of AI and how it's integrating people together?
I think there's a lot of challenging questions about how AI and humanity interact that we have yet to figure out. As we create more sophisticated artificial intelligences, how do we replace our human interactions with those with computers? And where are those healthy? Where do this help us to have better relationships with our existing human friends and spouses and families? And where do they start to take the places of those? I think that's where you get into hard territory. And so I think about it as sort of tools versus personalities. I'm more on the side of AI tools being a very powerful thing that we can create to help us in all kinds of products and tasks that we have, but that are not trying to mimic human behavior directly. They're mostly doing human level intelligence tasks, but that can be applied in specific scenarios as opposed to trying to create replacements for humans. So I'm very optimistic on the tool side, and I think the other side is really fraught, and there's a lot to consider there.
Well, like I heard you mention the panel there, and this is something that I really love saying for this interview because we're cutting little to cut, but we live at the other side. Like being excited can be excited both in positive and negative, right?
Yeah.
When you say I don't think we'd want to be building computer slaves, right? How do you, in your excitement, do you see, as possible projection, like, when it comes to tools, what do you see as far as the tools and what do you see as possible red flags?
Well, the kinds of examples that I really like are like really advanced classifications, like classifying what's in an image to make it searchable. Things that would have before taken lots of human hours, but is a very low kind of creativity type of a work. It's kind of busy work that someone has to do to get that information into a computer system. Now we can apply AI to it, and we can have machines do that work, which computers can be very good at. The red flags come around where we're replacing human interaction with a sort of fast food or junk food version of human interaction where, I will very happily sit down and eat a meal of fast food, and it's delicious and I love it. But at the same time, if I did that every day and that was the bulk of my food intake, that would probably not be very good for me. And so I go out of my way to eat healthy food and a balanced diet because I know that long term that's going to make me happier. And I think the same is probably true of some of these more AI replacement types of use cases, where they can probably be very satisfying and maybe even more satisfying than a human relationship because they're not pushing back. They're not calling you out on your bad behavior. They're always just the perfect version of someone who is just gonna be nice to you and follow your directions and just sort of placate you. And that I think can have long-term damage in the same way that eating a diet only of fast food can, where you stop being able to cope with real situations. Like when you're out in the real world, that's not what humans are like. And so if you replace your human interactions with that, you maybe find yourself in a place where you can't even cope with real life anymore. And that really is restricting to, I would guess, most people's hopes and dreams about what they want to accomplish in the world. And so there can be this downward spiral in that regard. And if we're not careful in what we create, and consumers are not careful in what they consume.
So to further that, then, in your opinion, how could AI foster that into more meaningful social connections? Like,
I
How
think
does it do it right?
I think you can imagine AI being a connector. I mean, we can imagine what AI could be because we have humans. We have real intelligences. And so you can imagine just having an assistant, like a personal assistant or someone who's there to help manage your calendar and create more opportunities for connections with the people that you do want to spend more time with in real life, your friends, your family. Like, it's really hard for me to schedule a night out with a bunch of my friends because we all are busy. We all have family obligations. If there was an AI system that was constantly being like, you know what, you haven't seen so and so for a while. Maybe the two of you should go out and have dinner. I found a place on your calendar where you could do that. Do you want to go do that? That's the kind of thing where you've got a human type intelligence that comes in and is trying to improve your existing relationships. Or they could be like, I've noticed that you've eaten fast food 5 times this week. What about here's a recipe for, some healthy meal that you could cook with your family this weekend to mix it up a little bit, right? Like some AI agent that is paying attention and is sort of pushing you in the right direction, but is not trying to sort of mimic being a human companion, but is really just like a guardian angel, so to speak, right? Where it's like they're looking out for your best interests. They're trying to enhance and make it easier to have those relationships that are meaningful. That to me is what an optimistic version of something that is more like a personality could be like. And like you could still have a nice conversational back and forth with it, but you would never be you would never be confused about what it's trying to do for you, right? Like its task is to be that for you, and that's the relationship that you would have with it. It's not trying to be anything other than that.
It's not entering that like sort of uncanny valley or even going past it into being like, this is now my spouse.
Right. Yeah, it's not intended to replace any specific person in your life. It's more of a tool. It's like a very advanced calendar and whatever, like recommendation engine, doing things that we do ourselves today, just maybe not as well as we could if we had if we had, I mean, it's really like a personal assistant in a way, someone that has a professional relationship that is just trying to smooth things out for you, or that could do a lot of those things like I need to submit my registration for my car. Like if I have a system that can do those things for me and manage the whole website interaction and just kind of do that on my behalf, then I have more time to spend doing the things that I want to do. So eliminating busy work would be a fantastic thing that an AI system could do that would be enhancing of human relationships, not directly, but indirectly by just freeing up more time.
I agree. Um, how do you think that AI can positively influence mental health and personal growth?
Mental health is a really tricky one because if you don't do it right, you can cause real harm. And so that's a place where I know that people have experimented there with AI therapists, but I think it's a little, it can be dangerous, right? We as builders, I'm a builder, right? I like to build stuff, and we can often get in the mindset that it's I'll build it and I'll see if it's useful. And I think mostly that's fine. But in cases where you're dealing with people's mental health, like that's an area that you need to be especially careful. If you get someone to come use your product that's in a very severe, bad mental place, and your AI system doesn't quite operate the way that you intended, that can have really negative outcomes. And so that's hard. I think there could be a place for AI therapists in that regard. I think if we do it right, having someone or something rather that is not human might actually be helpful. Where you don't want to feel judged by another person, like you feel ashamed, you feel guilty, you feel whatever it is. It can be hard for people to open up to human therapists because they're humans, right? And that has a lot of baggage that comes along with it. I think there could be places for that, probably not as a long-term solution necessarily, because again, you get into these traps of, an AI is gonna, I mean, depending on how it's written, um, it's not necessarily going to push you in the directions that you want, but I suppose it could be made to do so. So I think there are potential use cases there, or in acute types of things where you've got someone who is just severely lonely and they need something to like chat with to give some simulation of a human connection for whatever reason that could save them from getting to a very bad mental health place. Making something like that available could potentially be helpful. Or maybe we just have AI systems that are good at diagnosing. Maybe they're not trying to solve problems for you. They're just trying to identify what help could be the best for you, right? Like a triage mechanism.
So going back to those
Diagnosis.
incredibly intelligent system of tools.
Yeah, basically. But like, like you go to the doctor and they try to diagnose you, but doctors are not perfect. And oftentimes you end up Googling stuff and, you have to, when you go to the doctor, you can't expect that they're going to diagnose you correctly. You have to go in there and be your own advocate.
Yeah.
And I think systems like that can be conversational, that could be like, well, here's some ideas. Like, just make sure that you've given yourself context around these possibilities so that you yourself are more knowledgeable about what could be wrong. That can be applied to mental health in a way that's like, I don't know what's going on. Maybe give me some ideas for what kind of person I should talk to or how I should think about getting myself out of this situation. Could just be a more friendly Google. And I mean, Google already is challenging when it comes to medical advice, right? You're like, well, it's cancer. Again, you're like, my foot hurts. And they're like, yeah, it's probably cancer, right? And that's not
cancer or AIDS.
exactly.
You usually got cancer and AIDS.
It's whatever the worst possible thing is that could be a symptom for. You're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that must be it. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Especially as a parent, you go in there and you're like, my kid has this bad cough, or and they've had it for a week, and they're like, it's probably cancer.
Yeah.
Almost. And it's terrible, right? And so you go in and it's just not ideal, right? If you had a better system, an AI system that had more context and was better at it, you could give it symptoms, and it could be like, go to the doctor, but also like read about these things first, so that when you're there, you can say, I read up on some of this stuff, and I just want to make sure that like none of these are the thing, and make sure that the doctor knows what your concerns are. Or it could just be a coach. This is not necessarily mental health, but I recently purchased a vehicle, and it's like one of my least favorite things to do, to go to the dealer and have to like buy a car. It's a nightmare, right? Even being able to coach people through these processes as a role playing, right? It's like, give me some tips on how to negotiate to buy a used car, and then let's like run that in real life, and you be as sleazy as possible, and I'll try to like run the negotiating tactics and like help me be good at that. There's a million situations like that maybe even help people from getting to a place of, where they're down on themselves, where their life is going better, and it's just they're less likely to fall into certain mental health situations because they're being more successful because of the coaching or other types of things they've had that are facilitated by AI systems, and so they're more affordable.
And last one. This is it's kind of right next to what we're just talking about though. But just for you, how might we design AI to improve our social life and our social capabilities? You sort of touched on this already with like it being more of an assistant, but when it comes to, say, because you're a builder, what does that look like from a design perspective?
Yeah. Well, I go back to the tool thing. I think I would ask myself, am I building something that is designed specifically to enhance people's human relationships with other people and their how they approach the world? Or am I designing something that's intended to replace a human connection? That would be the primary question that I would probably ask from a design perspective when I'm working on it. Like, all right, I'm designing this thing. Maybe it's the diagnosis thing. It's like, is this trying to replace a human? In a way, yes, it is. But what is the purpose of that human connection? What is the purpose of going to the doctor to be diagnosed? You're looking for an end result, a specific kind of transactional end result. Now you want to be cared for, right? Like we talked about bedside manner chemo today. Some doctors would prefer to outsource the task of having good bedside manner to like an AI bot or something, because they don't want to do it. They want to focus on the science of it or whatever, and they can't be bothered with the human side. And so when you go into the doctor, really there are both those aspects. You want to be treated like a human. You want to be empathized with, but you also want an answer. And so in designing something that is preparing you for that experience, for instance, then I think about what is the end result that I'm trying to create, and what is the then conversational experience that I'm trying to create to achieve that end result. If there's some specific goal in mind that is a transactional outcome, then I think that's a much different thing than trying to say the interaction with the system is the goal, right? Like, so some of these conversational bots, like the goal is to converse with them in an open-ended way. That I think is slippery slope. That can get into weird places that I'm not super interested in. But from a tool perspective, if it's helping you achieve a specific end goal so that you can then take that into the human realm, then that's what I would be optimizing for.